Okay, hello everyone. It is August 19th, 2025, and I want to talk a little bit about the summits that we have seen over the past few days involving the war in Ukraine. As you know, this is a topic I've done a lot of videos about here on the channel. Hope you, by the way, if you like the video, hope you will like and subscribe. And I even have a playlist of the Russo-Ukrainian war if you want to go back and see some of the other videos I've done. There is so much to talk about. I'm going to try to condense down and just hit a few key points in this one. First, what came out of the Russian the summit with Putin in Alaska? The answer is nothing good for Trump. They were supposed to have a first meeting that was going to last about 3 hours or so. They're supposed to then have a working lunch and then follow up meeting with more of the delegations of each side. They did the first meeting. By the way, if you see from the beginning, you see Trump. He's clapping. He's like, "My buddy Vlad is here," and he's super excited. He's got the red carpet out for him. They get in the car. Press starts shouting questions. Putin is pretending to not understand English. Yes, he speaks English because he does not want to answer questions. They get in the limo. They drive away. Actually, I think the questions were after the limo. But either way, they have the first meeting. They cancel the lunch and they cancel the second meeting. So they walk out. You can see Trump, Rubio, all of them. They're all kind of hangdog. They look drained. They look deflated. And then Trump starts going, meeting was a big success. Meeting was a big success. No press conference, no questions. They made a quick little statement. Putin says, "Next time, Moscow." So Mr. I don't understand English, so he just gives this sentence there in English. Putin hops on his plane, flies home. The big takeaway from it is that Trump says, no more ceasefire. Not looking for a ceasefire. Putin has been clear. He does not want a ceasefire. So Putin won two victories in this one. The first one was he got Trump to drop the ceasefire. Second thing was, remember how Trump was saying Russia has 50 days to end the war. Okay, now Russia has 10 days. Well, maybe it's going to be 12 days. And then we're going to put all these secondary sanctions on anyone who's buying Russian oil. And we're going to force Russia to end the war. Putin has successfully killed that timeline. The summit itself happened about a week after the end of the timeline. And Trump came out when he went on Hannity after that and started going on and on about mail-in ballots and how he really won the 2020 election, all that stuff. He also happened to mention that it would be at least 2 to 3 weeks before he would even think about sanctions again. So Putin bought time to keep off secondary sanctions on Russian oil, and he got Trump to drop the ceasefire demand. The reason the ceasefire demand is a big deal is that Ukraine is fighting a purely defensive war. They're building what's called defense in depth. All along the Donbass front, in Donetsk specifically, they're building layers and layers of trenches, anti-tank barricades, anti-tank ditches. Basically, just build a big ditch, a vehicle can't get through it. They're putting up barbed wire. They're expanding their drone fleets. And what they're doing is they're not making it longer, they're making it thicker. So if the Russians were to penetrate one area of it, there's another defensive formation right behind it. So, imagine you have a bunker, and if the Russians overrun the bunker or destroy it or whatever, as soon as they move in that area, it comes under fire from another Ukrainian bunker that was built further back, or another trench line, or another minefield, or whatever. If the war stops, the Ukrainians can thicken that belt of defenses without Russian air attack, drone attack, without Russian infantry attacks, things like that. That is bad news for Russia. So basically, Putin managed to get a couple of major points out of Trump. Trump is upset because he wants his Nobel Peace Prize, and he thinks getting this war to end is his ticket to it, and he clearly did not get that. He did get the photo op that he wanted with Putin. He wanted that photo op bad. He got that. That's about the only thing Trump got out of it. So fast forward to Monday. Zelensky shows up. A bunch of Euro leaders show up. Zelensky is completely different in how he deals with Trump. It is all flattery, flattery, flattery. He gives a letter from his wife to Trump's wife. Everything is personal to Trump, so Zelensky gave him a very personal gift. All the other European leaders show up. They do the same thing. If you look at the round table, there's a lot of flattery going on. They butter Trump up very well. And then after that, they start talking about business and serious issues. And frankly, they have a lot of success. They get Trump moving in their direction. Trump starts saying, okay, we do have to have security guarantees for Ukraine, which he was not offering before. He begins to agree to the idea of European forces being located in Ukraine as part of that security guarantee, which again, he was not looking at that before. He starts saying we need trilateral talks between himself, Putin, and Zelensky. Before, he had been very clear. It was going to be him and Putin. They were going to divide up Ukraine. They were going to tell everyone else what was going to happen. Europeans would not have a seat at the table, and Zelensky would not have a seat at the table. Now, Trump is insisting that Zelensky has to be part of this. So another big gain there. The initial meeting ends, and then several of the leaders stay on for dinner, which they were not scheduled to do. Contrast this with what happened with Putin on Friday when they were canceling the lunch in the second meeting versus Monday when they're extending the meeting and they're adding a dinner. The other big thing is that Zelensky is able to get Trump to make an announcement that the Europeans are going to purchase $100 billion of American military hardware for Ukraine. You notice Trump likes round numbers, 500 billion, 600 billion, 100 billion. It's always a nice round kind of number. This is a big deal because this means that, one, Trump believes it'll happen. Two, Trump has a big announcement. He is big on optics. He wants the announcement. So the Europeans and Zelensky gave him an announcement. So overall, this is really big. What we're seeing is Trump moving much closer to the Ukrainian position than he ever has been before. He's not particularly close to their position, but he's a heck of a lot closer than, again, he's ever been in the past. And this is the furthest he has been from the Russian position yet. The other thing to note is J.D. Vance. J.D. Vance has basically been on vacation for the last couple of months. He was on vacation last week. He was supposed to be on vacation on Monday. He left his vacation to rush to the White House for the meeting. Everybody thought he was there to hammer Zelensky because he is very pro-Russian. He kept his mouth shut the whole time and basically sat in the back. This says a lot about his standing within the administration. I did a separate video on that on the channel, but Zelensky is doing the press conference. He's shaking hands. He's getting the photo ops with Trump. He's doing the interviews. And Vance is just sitting there quietly. Contrast that to what happened in February, and oh my God, have things changed. So, a couple of things. First, is the United States going to sell $100 billion of weaponry to Ukraine? The answer, maybe. You know, Trump has had several of these announcements that so-and-so is going to invest $500 billion, so-and-so is going to invest $600 billion. And I've done videos on those and I'll explain why those numbers are, the term I keep using is farcical. They're jokes. They're not real. Nothing of the sort is going to happen. This one might actually happen. I find it very unlikely at that volume, at that price. But, now when I say that being, on a long enough timeline, eventually $100 billion will be spent. Sure, it's going to take many years. Would that be spent in, say, 3.5 years to the end of Trump's first term? Unlikely, I'd say very unlikely, but not impossible, because France buys a few billion, the British spend a few billion, the Italians a few billion, the Germans a few billion, the Poles spend $1 billion or $2 billion, the Danes buy some, the Swedes buy some, the Norwegians buy some, the Spaniards buy some, the Czechs buy some, the Romanians buy some, the Lithuanians buy some, the Dutch buy some, the Belgians buy some, the Canadians buy a little bit. All of a sudden that cost gets defrayed over, several different countries. The Finns buy some, of course Ukraine buying some. It's possible to get to 100 billion. Again, I don't think it's going to happen. It's such a big number. And looking at the defense spending of those countries, because the idea that this would be in addition to what was already essentially on order, again, I find it pretty unlikely, but it's not impossible. It actually might happen. Unlike all the other big investment numbers, which, I've been on my videos kind of explaining how it's not going to happen, and nothing even close to it is going to happen. This one, it might happen, and there's a solid chance that we get to some number that's at least in that ballpark. Maybe it's 75 million, maybe it's 75 billion, maybe it's 80 billion. But like that, there's at least a reasonable shot at that. Again, I still think even that's unlikely, but it's not impossible like with a lot of the other ones. So now Trump has his optics, he has his pressers, he has his press release, he's got his number he can throw out there, he can tweet about stuff, he's getting more favorable media coverage, which he loves. Trump ravenously consumes media. So overall, fantastic day for Ukraine, fantastic day for Europe, terrible day for Russia. Now we have some follow-up from that. Trump left the meeting with the Europeans and spoke to Putin, told Putin that you're going to have to talk to Zelensky. Putin said, well, not trilateral. It has to be just one-on-one with me and Zelensky. And Putin has offered Moscow, which of course Zelensky's never going to do. He'd be out of his mind. They'd assassinate him almost immediately. But the fact that he got on the phone and said, look, you're going to have to be a realist about this. That's the first time Trump has, in any major way, basically said, no, you're not going to get your maximalist demands. So Putin is clearly losing ground here. Now, he's not on the outside. Trump still desperately wants validation from Putin. He wants Putin to look at him and say, Donald, you're a big bad, dictator like I am. He's never going to get that. Putin, in fact, made sure that Trump had to wait on him at the summit in Alaska as a power play. That's a big deal in diplomatic circles. But overall, we're seeing a lot of moving parts. Now, to the $64,000 question, when is peace coming to Ukraine? The answer is probably not for at least over a month. At the earliest, in my opinion, this is my opinion and I'm speculating here, I would say be October 1st. I would think that once you get to around late November, early December, the odds really start to crank up. And between then and the end of March is a pretty good window for peace. If the war is still going next April, say by mid to late April, then we're probably in for at least a whole nother summer of it. Here's why I think that you may see peace in that window of kind of late November to late March. Russia's military is falling apart. They're running out of everything. Tanks, armored vehicles, artillery, ammunition, manpower, money, technology. The only thing they've got more of is drones. Everything else they're running out of badly. They're already out of trucks and jeeps and a number of other products. The other thing is the Russian economy is dying, like really dying. The Russian inflation rate is dropping, which might be good, but here's the thing. It's dropping while the government is printing more and more money at an insane pace. In 2024 alone, they added 19% of the total money supply was printed in 2024 alone. The central bank has dropped interest rates by 200 basis points, still a very high 18%, extremely high, but that's 200 basis point cut, and inflation went down. So they're printing more money, they're cutting interest rates, and inflation's dropping. This is a demand collapse. Remember I talked about in earlier videos, Russia's economy melting down. The meltdown is here. It has started. It's not finished. It's not going to happen in a day. It's going to take months, several months, but it's here. And I think the opportunity for Russia to stop it has passed. That is my opinion, but I have a feeling that sometime in that window, November to the end of March, a mixture of economic meltdown and the military just simply being out of the capacity to launch large-scale offensive operations is going to force Russia to the peace table. I think this is very much what the Ukrainians and the Europeans believe. I think they're looking at it saying, we got to hold on for 3 or 4 more months here, and the Russians are just bled out. They're just worn out. By the way, enlistment in the Russian army is at a 2-year low. And they are having gasoline shortages or fuel shortages around the country. Parts of Siberia, they're issuing fuel coupons. And unless you are a certain government agency or a preferred business, you cannot buy fuel. You just can't. Because the Ukraine, well, there's a variety of reasons, not the least of which is that the Ukrainians are blowing up Russian refineries. Russia also just lost its last oil pipeline into Europe. The Ukrainians hit a power station that basically supplied the pipeline with electricity and leveled it, and it is now offline indefinitely. It cost them over $5 million a day of gross revenue. Keep in mind, the Russian government's budget is 1/20th the size of the American budget. And this was their last oil pipeline into Europe, and it is now offline for at least an extended period of time. So yes, I do think, and there's a lot more details, a lot more information, but this video has gone way too long. The point of it is, yes, I do think we have peace coming. My guess, though, is that it earliest October, more likely November to March. All right, hope everyone has a great day, and please, put your comments and like and subscribe. Thank you.